Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us as we reflect on our approach to elevating the customer experience at Amway. I'm Miranda, Strategy and Implementation Lead at Gongos, and today I'm joined by my colleague David, Vice President of Client Consulting at Gongos, and our partner Drew, Market Research Analyst with Amway. The three of us, along with many others, were deeply involved in this work, and we're so proud and honored to have it named as a recipient of the CX of M Industry Best Practices Award. A huge thank you to CX of M and the judges for recognizing the case study we're going to talk through today. This turned out to be a really impactful endeavor at Amway, and the positive CX outcomes that resulted ended up extending well beyond our initial e-commerce focus. We learned so much from this experience, and we hope that today's Q&A conversation will inspire you in your own CX efforts. So let's start by setting the stage. This was a close collaboration between the Amway Market Research and Digital teams, which Drew is a part of, and Gongos, where David and I are part of the account team. Our teams have worked together in one form or another since 2008, building a long-standing relationship which has included all sorts of projects across research, marketing, enterprise transformation, and more. This particular series of work kicked off in 2019 and was born out of a broader set of initiatives. So Drew, could you take us back to what inspired this undertaking? What was going on at Amway at the time, and how did that lead to the work we're discussing today?
Yeah, so 2019 was really a huge year at Amway and really a transformational year at Amway. We went through a lot of change, including we were on the heels of our 60-year anniversary as a company. So as we've coined, A60 was happening that year. We also appointed a new CEO with our company, and it was the first time within our company's history that the two founding families would not be running the day-to-day work of our company, the DeVos and Van Andel family. And with that change really came a new vision really for the company. Milland, who was our new CEO coming in from outside of our industry, really drove a new customer-centric culture that really tried to elevate the customer experience. And what this meant was creating new platforms for our company that was basically really between our product distributors, our independent business owners, also known as ABOs, and our end customer. And with that, Milland really instated a new 10-year vision for the company, which would be to engage with our customers to help our business owner build more sustainable businesses and really making that interaction 10 times easier.
So to add more context, I think it's important for us to highlight a key institutional challenge we were up against, which is how Amway had traditionally viewed the customer experience up to this point. So Drew, could you briefly explain who the focus of CX had been at Amway prior to this?
Absolutely. I think Amway, like many other companies, was in a similar situation where, we've been seeing this rise of customer focus over the last 5 to 10 years with every company. And within that was built in a little bit of a unique circumstance for Amway, where historically we had placed a lot of our focus in building our experience around our business owners without really the end customer necessarily in mind. So with that, really, one of our biggest challenges was really starting to separate that relationship and understanding that we, really from an operational standpoint had this kind of B2B to C mentality, which, before we were really focusing on that B2B. The other piece really was one of the things that this work really elevated was the fact that while the relationship between, with the customer was really owned by that business owner, there were other touch points within particularly the digital world that was really owned by Amway. So as we started to really try to push more sales online into our e-commerce platform, that couldn't be completely owned by our ABO. So that was really Amway's opportunity to really step in and take ownership of those touch points.
So to build on what you mentioned with digital, how did the market research and digital teams at Amway fit into this picture? What opportunity did this new customer-centric vision present from an e-commerce perspective?
Yeah, like I said previously, we were in a situation where we had actually just launched a new e-commerce platform, but when we launched this, it was really still within the eyes of our business owner and wasn't designed around the customer needs. So when it came to, launching this and looking at things like the difficulty around registration or finding products or product descriptions and things like that, we hadn't brought the customer to the forefront yet within that. So what this really allowed us to do, especially with this new change in leadership, was to somewhat start over from scratch. I mean, we were still going to use this platform, but take a look at it through a different lens. And a lot of companies don't really get the opportunity to do that. So it was a bit of an opportunity for our digital team to be able to take a new look at this and design this new e-commerce experience specifically for the customer.
So now for the fun part, let's talk about the work. So David, what did seizing on this opportunity look like? How did we go about unearthing the customer's perspective?
Thanks so much, Miranda. You're absolutely right. This was a lot of fun, this part of the project, working with Drew and the team at Amway to design the research. And what we did was try to keep that as simple as possible. We focused on using a global observational framework, realizing that this work would be done in multiple countries, and really focused on trying to understand the expectations of the customer in the most natural environment as possible. And so the way in which it was structured was essentially using a talk out loud protocol, very common in sort of the UX world, if you will, but really applying that to sort of CX objectives. And in this case, what we were trying to do was really uncover expectations along the e-commerce journey and the pain points that the customer identified in that process. And so what we ended up doing was giving them a budget. They were free to shop as they normally would via the Amway e-commerce site. And all they had to do was really talk to us about sort of what they were doing through that process. Where would they start? What would be the next step? What are they looking at? What would they expect to see? So on and so forth. And so it was a really sort of simple design, but one that was really quite powerful in uncovering pain points along that journey. So what we ended up finding in the process was that there were several sources of friction throughout the entirety of the journey. And it became apparent quite immediately. For example, the homepage. Typically when a customer comes to a homepage and they're interested in shopping, there are expectations associated with that experience of basic navigation, right? The ability to sort of begin to kind of structure your journey from your perspective around what it is you're looking for. And one of the things that was quickly apparent from the work is that, in fact, the homepage in and of itself was a little confusing. There was content on the homepage that was dedicated to the business owner. There was content on the homepage that was really intended for the consumer. And it was a little confusing for the customer as to where they should really kind of start this process. What should they focus on? And I think sort of that idea of really creating sort of a homepage, a landing page for the customer that was really distinct from the business owner was the beginnings of the journey. This idea that customers are really coming in with a fundamentally different need state, a need state to shop. Whereas a business owner was coming into the e-commerce site not to shop oftentimes, but to order. And so the transformation that has ultimately taken place is really focused on sort of fulfilling on that customer's need state to really discover and shop, versus the business owner's need state, which is really, one of more functional in terms of running your business and placing your orders. Ultimately, the work was that we had done sort of in field, where we were able to map customer expectations and pain points along the journey, was integrated with a few other key sources of data. One being sort of a parallel competitive benchmarking analysis that was being done by the digital team at the time, that really looked at very concrete items. Almost sort of like a mystery shopping type of audit of competitive websites. So contrasting sort of that very specific audit of Amway's customer shopping experience versus other companies' customer shopping experiences, taking that into account with the journey, and then some of the analytics around the site really helped to create a very detailed action plan for the digital team to build out that customer shopping journey. This allowed us to bring together and unify all of those findings to provide sort of an immersive learning, ideation, and action planning opportunity for both the marketing and digital teams at Amway.
Thank you, David. Well, this work is fascinating and we could spend the whole half hour talking about it. I'm going to switch to the outcomes. So Drew, what was the outcome of this work internally and externally with regard to e-commerce? How did the insights impact both business operations and the customer experience?
Yeah, Miranda, that's the beautiful part right there. And this was, a project that worked exactly how you hope research will work, and that insights drove action within the organization. And what this really gave our digital team was a roadmap in terms of guiding future development and refinement of our e-commerce strategy, which is everything that we want when we're going to spend money on research. The other thing it really did, as intended, was the partnership really brought to light this, what I spoke about earlier, this B to B to C dynamics within our e-commerce channel. And more specifically, in the ways in which the design of the experience needed to evolve to address those customer needs. One of the things, from an organizational perspective that our company was starting to go towards during this time, like I said, we had a lot of changes within our executive leadership, was hiring our first ever chief marketing and digital officer. And this was really bringing both departments under one umbrella. One really great, point of reference or one really great example that we look at is, from a digital perspective, we were using marketing's categorization and merchandising scheme on our e-commerce platform. And what we've realized is that, customers don't really look for products in the way that marketers think about them. So here at Amway, we think about our markets in categories and brands. However, when a customer comes to a website, they're thinking about their need. They have a weight loss need or some sort of other nutritional or beauty need. We're only thinking about it within our product brands themselves. So what this did is be able to have one oversight over the way that those things interact between our marketing and digital team. One of the great parts about this research too is it's still lasting today. We did this research now almost a year ago, if not over a year ago, and we're still using the insights from this today. I get updates from our digital team all the time, and I'm seeing changes with our platforms that are really being driven by the insights within these projects. And including every year we have a global growth concert. It's our GGC conference where the top execs from all around the world come together to talk about what's happening in the previous year and what we're planning to do in the next year. And this piece of work specifically was highlighted actually on the main stage, going through some of these findings, some of the videos you probably saw earlier. And the other thing we did within some of the breakout sessions, at least our digital team was able to conduct, was bring in executive staff and take them through the same things that we took those customers through within our qualitative research, and really immerse them into these findings and some of these pain points, and walk them through that, and really open their eyes to some of the pain points that existed. And I think that's what's really driven this beyond just kind of a research project that gets reported and then ends. This has had long lasting legs to it.
I'd like to build a little on what you just said, and I'm going to open up this question to both of you. So could you talk more about the staying power of this initiative and the ongoing efforts to elevate CX across Amway's platforms?
I'll go ahead and take that one, David. To start, I think this is where the power of the Amway and Gongos relationship really, proves how priceless it is to me. In that, what this really brought to light, and what was happening with an organization, especially sitting in my seat within market research, was more and more people were coming to us asking for more information on the customer. It was just something that we had not really focused on within our research, or even as an organization. So, going back to Gongos and really talking about some of these things, is we realized there was so much more to the customer experience than just the digital, or even just our e-commerce. That was really foundational to the work that started, but we really took this beyond even just that, and we started to really look at the customer experience as a whole. And I know David could probably talk to that even more.
Yeah, thanks, Drew. Following that e-commerce project, it's been really exciting to see sort of where the work has gone together. Thinking about sort of the exploration of customer needs and expectations within the digital channel, to some of the more recent work that we've been doing together around looking at the totality of the customer journey, both online and offline. And that's been really important work because, as Drew mentioned earlier, the business owner is really at the center of this. the customer is a customer of the business owner, as well as Amway, purchasing Amway's products and services. And looking at sort of the totality of expectations that customers bring into that relationship with the business owner, with Amway, and the specific role that digital plays in facilitating that relationship, but also sort of looking at touch points beyond that. One of the things that comes to mind more recently around some of the work that we've done is really helping Amway to understand sort of the potential ways in which digital can facilitate that relationship between the customer and the business owner through, for example, new aspects of the digital experience around, for example, personal websites that the business owners can use and create as a way of bringing the customer into the shopping experience with their input, with their recommendations, with the types of products that they're most passionate about and think would be most relevant to the customer that they're bringing in. And that work just continues to expand, sort of this customer-focused work around not only insights into customer acquisition, but also some of the work that we've done more recently around sort of understanding those drivers of retention and all the different data sources that are available to really informing sort of that customer-focused strategy that's underway at Amway today.
Thank you both. So finally, in the spirit of supporting your peers, if you could both end with some key takeaways from this partnership. If nothing else, what do you hope our audience takes from this case study as inspiration for their own CX work?
That's a great question, Miranda. And I think, for me, there's really three main takeaways. I think the methodology was extremely simple. Anyone can understand it. You didn't have to have an MR background to understand, to activate and to understand our findings. Secondly, was really about, our stakeholders were blindsided by this. I think when you sit in an organization like at Amway, you're so close to the product. Sometimes it's difficult to take that step back and look at the entire issue in totality. And then thirdly, really for me, is having a partner like Gongos that helps you take that step back, think about the customer experience holistically, not just as, I'm a stakeholder of this one platform or this one touch point, and how really invaluable and important that is.
Absolutely agree, Drew. Like for me, sort of three key takeaways. Drew mentioned it, the idea of sort of simplicity. And, I think one of the key things around sort of simplicity is when you start really customer first, if the focus is really sort of customer first and understanding sort of the experience from the customer's eyes, it's quite easy to keep it simple. Oftentimes we bring sort of our complexity into the design of the work because we know much more than the customer. And I think it's just a good reminder that simplicity is around being customer first and not bringing sort of our complexity of how we think about their experience, our business into the equation. The second key takeaway for me, and something that we didn't really hit upon a lot in the discussion thus far, but I don't want to kind of lose it in the discussion, is that part of the simplicity of this design was realizing that we needed to sort of put in the context of a broader environment for the customer. And so one of the key things that we did, and I think this is part of, again, sort of this customer first lens, is realizing that when you're evaluating customer expectations and the experience, is not to sort of limit those expectations and experience to what you're trying to deliver to them, but understand that within the context of the best experiences that they're having in the marketplace today. That was a really important area of focus that we didn't really touch upon much, but I don't want to lose sight of that. What allowed us to really kind of get to the core expectations of the experience was not limiting our focus to their experience with Amway and Amway's e-commerce platform, but also the best e-commerce experiences that they're having in the marketplace today, and really dig into what was it about those experiences that customers really loved, and how could Amway really learn from that. And for me, sort of my third key takeaway is, the partnership that we have with Amway that's really allowed us to not just work with them on this project, but really support them throughout the entire journey of activation. And a big part of that was the ability to kind of create experiences for the stakeholders at the conclusion of the actual work, meaning once we've gone out and gathered all that data about the experience, the ability to really activate that and build empathy for the customer through the workshop experiences that we've created, through the digital experiences that we've created, where we actually allow them to sort of see those pain points in action. And I think sort of that the power of really building empathy and working with a partner like Amway that allows us to kind of place as much effort on the socialization of the work as it does on the work itself has been a really sort of important aspect of elevating the impact of this work throughout the organization.
Thank you both so much. This has been incredibly insightful. So this marks the end of our pre-recorded conversation. Thank you all for joining us today. We hope this real-life example leaves you with practical learnings that you can apply to your own pursuit of elevating the customer experience. We look forward to continuing this conversation and answering any questions you might have in our live Q&A.